Kirk, I'm going to call you out here in a good way. I think maybe just a real way. We just got done on 2 episodes ago, I believe, talking about how from time to time we have a day where one person's like, listen, I don't know what you're going to get from me today. And that's the exact phrase you gave me today.
Whoops.
At a time where I'm at my most distracted with this third day of school sitting here and it's chaos. And anyway, as a result, we're going to do something that I think we both kind of enjoy doing.
Okay.
In a weird way.
First of all, winners rise to the occasion, and we're winners, Brakken.
Darn right.
I want to be here, and I choose to be here, and I love it here. So don't kid yourself, folks.
No, we love being here. Just sometimes 100%. We are this is compromised podcasting sometimes.
Ooh, we could coin that.
Everyone gets low points in their day. Sometimes you have them and you still have to get your work done. So,
when I'm going to distract actually right out of the gate. So for me, maybe you out listening can relate to this. So alarm goes off like 4:45. Immediately, it's if I could inject coffee into my veins, I would, but I have to drink it, so I do. And then I have this high. I worked out. I was working for a bit with clients in the gym. And then inevitably, the first chance you have to sit down, which is when we record this podcast, the caffeine is worn off. The workout has been done. You finally go, I haven't sat in a chair today until this moment. And then it always hits you a little funny when you sit down for the first time after going. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. And if you were a pro athlete or a semi-pro, this would be your nap.
100%. We're not that.
But we're not that.
Okay, sorry. Not to distract.
No, it's okay. So now we're going to do something that takes less mental effort, but because it's engaging and a little bit fun, it'll fire us up energy-wise. So we are going to respond to an Instagram reel coach.
Oh, gosh. Where did you come up with this?
This was sent to me by an athlete that I work with.
Okay.
So he said, hey, I've never heard this before. Is it really this simple? This would be really helpful.
Okay.
And
can I pull this up in conjunction, or are you just dropping these on me?
Honestly, I'm not going to say the person, and I'm going to try not to be too specific so we don't call them out, but the reel was very difficult to understand because the words that he put up on the screen were different than the words he was saying, and the words he was saying did not make a ton of sense. He's talking about a math equation of some sort, and it took a couple times listening to it till I thought, like, I'm pretty sure I know what he's saying. But then when you look at it with the words, it makes more sense. And anyway, so the reel's kind of useless, but the information is presented in a way that is like, this is clear cut, simple, easy, use it. And his question was, is it really? If so, that'd be awesome. So I know I haven't given you any information yet, but that's the background for it. This is an instructional tip from a coach on Instagram via a reel that claims to have a formula for how much vert you need to run per week.
Are we dissecting just one clip or multiple?
Just one. And we're going to roll with this episode.
Oh, okay.
Because it's going to lead to conversation. I already know that.
Okay. I thought you were going to roll through a bunch of reels and we were giving hot takes on them.
No, not hot takes. This is a Training Tuesday-esque episode based as a reply to a question I had from an athlete on a coach's reel.
See, clearly I'm slow. All right.
Well, that's how I felt watching this reel.
So are we going to play it?
No, I'm just going to summarize it. Honestly,
you sure you don't want to play it?
I don't, because then it's going to be too easy someone will figure out who it is. And I don't want this coach to feel called out because that's not the point of this. The point is to provide clarity to something that is presented as a very simple, like bulletproof recommendation.
Okay.
All right. So the point of this is to figure out how much uphill vertical gain you should be getting per week as a trail or a mountain runner, or really any runner that has a race that is not pancake flat. And this is what the coach says. Take the total elevation of your race and divide it by the distance of your race to get average feet per mile. So if you have a 1,000 foot, let's see, a 10,000 feet of gain in 10 miles, that is on average 1,000 feet per mile.
Sounds like a horrible race.
That would be bad, but this is just an extreme example. So if you have 1,000 feet per mile of what you're training for, then you just multiply the miles you're currently running per week by that number, and that's how much vert you should get per week. So let's
Okay.
say you're running 50 miles a week and you have to, let's just say let's not do such a crazy example. Let's say you have an ultra. Let's just do some math here, Kirk. All right. So
Well, no, I mean,
go
well,
ahead.
no, actually, I'm gonna stop myself. I don't have all the information yet, so go ahead.
All right. So 5,000 feet of gain in a 50K. That's pretty, I would say, typical for a trail 50K.
In the Midwest, right in the wheelhouse.
Yep. 3 to
Mhm.
5,000, what you're going to find. So we're going to say you're running a 50K and it's 5,000 feet of vert on that course. There is 5,000 feet of vert. Divide that by 50K or 31.1 miles, and that equals 160.7. We'll call it 161 feet per mile on average you gain in that race.
Mm-hmm.
It's not nothing. So now we're going to run a 50-mile per week runner. That's what you're hitting per week. So you take your 50 miles and you multiply them by 161, and you should be doing 8,050 feet of vert per week. That's the recommendation. In order to be ready for the demands of the uphill and the downhill, and he specifies you should get that much downhill as well, 8,000 feet of descending per week.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean every week, but you should build up to be able to handle that during your big block of training.
Okay.
And maybe I'm taking that a little farther than what he actually said in the video, but it just says that's how much you should run in whatever your current week is. So let's say you start at 30 miles per week, you multiply that by 161. You go to 40, you multiply by 161. You move up to 50, you multiply by 161. So your vert is scaling with your mileage gain. And that is all you need to do to be prepared for a mountain race.
Okay.
Now, the question was, A, is this a thing, like a widely accepted industry standard? B, is it that simple? And C, should I do it?
Funny thing is that I could vehemently argue both sides of this and
Yes.
and feel like vindicated in my argument.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I could say, love it. It is as simple as that. And here's why. Or I could say, it's too blanket of a statement. It does not nearly specify or help you with the nuances of the races you're training for with. And this also will eventually fall short in races that at some point it doesn't matter. This formula doesn't matter if a race doesn't entail enough vert, for example. Right. And how is the vert laid out on the course you're about to race? And is it one big climb or is it a bunch of little climbs? And that all factors in, right? Well, why don't you, since this is your baby, give me your knee-jerk response, and then I will give you a follow-up to that. But I will say I've never heard this formula.
Yeah, so that was my first answer. I've never once heard this. I would say this is not industry standard.
So to discuss that before opinionizing it, I am by nature a fan of rules to help you make decisions because it takes out the overthinking process.
Yes.
So having a rule in place, even if it isn't the best rule, having a rule in place to at least put guardrails or framework to your decisions, I am all for that because then we can break it down and zoom in a bit and make it right just based off the rules. Then there's peace of mind. And so I like the concept just for that fact. It's flawed depending, but I like the idea of it. And I don't think it's terribly far off center if you have a run-of-the-mill Midwest rolling type race, let's call it.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think?
think that's why I don't like it. But I think that's why it's so good for a reel. You can just give someone a quick snippet that they don't have to read into. Here's a rule, I can follow it. We really like to have people just tell us, this is what will work. Don't overthink it. Boom, easy button. I can just plug and play and be done. That's the plug and play is the best way to ever get through life, right? In terms of just ease of access, low stress, plug and play, never worry about it again. That's the dream. What people don't want to do is dig into the what and the why and the variations because upfront that is overwhelming. But long term, it's the best route because then you understand the why and then you can change it depending on your situation. So I like it because it suits his audience probably. I don't like it because upfront it makes a lot of sense until you dive into it. And so even my first reaction was, I did just that simple math we did right here. And I was like, yeah, that that sounds okay. And
Yeah.
it scales up with your mileage and down with your mileage. Great. Let's actually, yeah, I kind of like it. And so that's my gut reaction. And if I am, to be so haughty, a little bit more well read and versed on running training than the average consumer is, if I thought, yeah, that sounds pretty good, the average person probably thinks, I see no issues with it. Boom. Now I've
Mm,
decided it's gospel. And that's why I
mhm.
don't like it, because if you take it one step further, you realize this is extremely limited in the scope it works for.
I agree with that statement. What I'm actually trying to do is, so first of all, I think my thought process is about the exact same as yours. Right away, I'm like,
Mhm.
a pretty ballpark. I
Yeah,
feel like if I was racing a 50K with 5,000 feet of vert and I was running roughly 8,000 feet of vert the right way, I'd show up quite prepared
very much so.
when done the right way. But at the same time, all these little like, yeah, buts pop into my head with specific examples. And so the ingredients to the sandwich are important in that, but how the sandwich is made uh, matters, I think
Yes.
is what I'm getting at.
So I want to start with two yeah buts right away.
Okay, well,
The first
let's
is,
lead.
if you are an ultra runner, you're running farther than a marathon. It's very common to run 80 to 100 mile per weeks for really, really serious, like club runners or just like lifers. There are a lot of people out there who aren't particularly fast running 80 to 100 miles per week, because that is a really good way, if you can stay healthy, of training for the marathon distance or longer. So let's just say you ran 100 miles per week to prepare for this. Times 161, you now have to run, to be ready for this, 16,100 feet of vert per week. So if we take it to one end of the spectrum of high volume, it instantly breaks, because what you and
It's
I,
compounding interest is what it is.
correct.
Yeah.
And you and I both know that the more volume you run, the less specificity is needed, because you don't have holes to cover in your engine. The less volume you run, the more race specific your training must be, because you don't have the engine to cover up holes in your fitness. And so the 100 mile per week person actually would probably need less vert than the 50 mile per week. And yet on this, they're doing double the vert. So 100-mile weeks on top of 16,000 feet of vert is going to be a huge amount of time investment and pounding. Because he pairs it, you must have that much descent as well, which is another thing I would disagree on, but we'll get to that. So the first yeah, but is that, yeah, but if you run big volume, this doesn't scale well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. That's one of my first thoughts. And when you
Yeah.
potentially scale even too far down, depending on the race distance or anything else, it won't scale well either. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
what's the lowest per week mileage you would feel confident coaching someone for to be able to do this race? A 50K with 5,000 feet of vert.
lowest mileage per week.
Yeah, lowest mileage per week.
Week before I ran my first 50K, I ran 17 miles total that week.
Let's
But
just say that you're like last 10 weeks leading in, what would you want someone to average at minimum to feel confident? Like, yeah, you can go out and still be fine here.
all right, well, you're not going to like my answer, but if this 50K does involve vert, I mean, if I could get somebody to 40 miles a week and it's at the bottom end of the barrel with
Mhm.
purposeful vert, they're probably still training 8+ hours a week. I could probably say you could probably get away with that. I'm talking bottom of the barrel.
Mhm.
What about you? I mean, I want to say 50 miles and, elaborate, but I'm talking bottom of the barrel.
And I'm thinking 30.
Oh, even lower.
Like,
Okay.
if you can weekly do the distance of the race and you have some big workouts in there, you're going to struggle a little bit on race day, but you're going to finish.
I agree with that.
So I think
You
third.
you you gave it to me. You didn't say just finish. You said do all right.
Okay, do all right. Let's split the difference. Let's say 35 or 40.
Yeah.
So then we go 40 times 161. You're at 6,440 feet of vert per week.
In 35 miles.
Yeah. 40 miles.
Oh, that was 40.
In 35, you're going to be closer. Let's see. 5,600 feet of vert per week. That feels way better to me.
The formula doesn't scale up well.
Doesn't scale up well, no.
I think if you're going to dive in further to like making this make sense, I think a lot of it has way more like if you were to, how am I going to explain myself well with my slowly decaffeinating brain, would be if you were to train for this 50, let's say the 50K, 5,000 feet of gain. I like that example. And you were a 6-day week runner. So you found a way to run 800 feet of gain every day, 850 feet of gain every day. And that adds up to your 5,000 feet of gain for the week. And here you are, right?
Yes.
Very unprepared for what's about to come your way.
Correct.
But it would fit the formula. I'm a little off of my math, but you get the point.
Yeah.
However, 2 days of 4,000 feet, one on the incline trainer, and then another 4,000 with descent focus over the weekend gets you your 8,000 recommended feet for the week.
Right.
And I would argue you're probably going to be more available, still take the downhill damage for it, and then remain flat mileage on the days between. And so it lacks the next step, which I think is probably the most important step, is the what exactly is happening on these days.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I still think I like it, but then you have to take it to the next step. And then it does break down at certain mileage, I think.
Yeah. So this, again, why you need to know the why, because just knowing the what isn't quite enough. If you want to average 161 feet per mile during training, we've already switched away from what are the race demands to what is the average per mile, which, unless you're running a looped course, average per mile is, and I've said this on here before, the average vert per mile, in my opinion, is one of the most useless stats you can take from the course profile.
What's more useless? A 4-mile tempo at marathon pace or the average vert per mile stats in a trail race?
Average vert per mile. Because the tempo can be paired with other things.
Okay.
This is more likely to just become your gospel, because you've already said your formula now became dependent on how many feet per mile. So then what you're going to start doing during training is thinking inherently about how many feet per mile. I just need to get this amount of feet. So each day, if you're running 160 feet per mile, you're probably not getting good speed work in, and you're also not getting great hill work in.
Right.
161 feet per mile is rolling. It's not climbing. It's gray zone, if there was such a thing, of hills.
Right. Sure.
Because your race, unless you're on a looped course, which a short loop course is not going to ever look like, you may run 0 miles within 20 feet plus or minus of 161 feet per mile. In your entire 31, you might not run any. You're probably going to run 10 that are 50 or less, 10 that are like 250 or more, and then maybe 10 somewhere in that 161 range. And 8,000 feet per week at 161 will only prepare you very well for 10 of your 31 miles. That's the way I would look at it.
I agree. And I don't think this is like bashing this guy against, whoever wrote this probably firmly believes it, and there's a lot of truth to it.
Or did this on a podcast afterwards and explained everything they're talking about.
Right. What's bothering me, it just keeps like gnawing at me right now, is what I'm trying to figure out as you're talking, if you see my eyes wandering a little bit, is I'm trying to figure out, okay, like, so where does this break down? Meaning just from a statistical standpoint, let's not talk about the nuances of where and why and how the vert is getting in, but more like, let's just say, like, where does this break down where it becomes unreasonable at what given mileage? Like, who is this actually applicable for if we were to say, yeah, let's buy this and let's maybe follow this. This isn't a terrible, if you're a 30 to 60 mile a week athlete, sure, but do it right.
Yes.
Where does it break down? At what mileage does this break down is what I'm trying to get to in my head, where then it just becomes overkill.
Yeah, I think the mileage would change based on the race type, like something with 300 feet per mile gain or 500, that's going to break down much earlier. So the flatter the race, the longer it scales up. Correct. The steeper the race, the less it scales up. But I think this is good for the, I would say, beginner to intermediate runner, which again speaks to why this was a good reel, because that's who's watching these reels and trying to take coaching advice, is beginner to intermediate. Once you get above 50 or 60 miles per week, this is not going to scale very well. and you're probably not looking for internet randoms to give you advice.
Here's what I think. I'm just sorting this out in my head. I'm thinking to past races, any mountain races I've done. Like, true, whether it's East Coast or West Coast, it could be the Eastern Mountains, it could be the Rockies, it could be a West Coast California race, could be a Southeast race like in West Virginia. We're talking 13 miles and 4,000 feet of gain and loss, give or take, sometimes even more notable vert, right?
Okay.
We had days in Big Bear with 5,000 feet in 13 miles. I think more races follow that sort of elevation profile. East or West Coast, long climbs, if whether they're 1,500 feet or 500 feet. I'm going to say let's ballpark it at half marathon distance and 4,000 feet of gain, or between 4 and 5,000.
All right. I have done that, and that's now 308 feet
Okay.
per mile. So now
Can you
308 times a 50-mile week is 15,400 feet of vert per
Okay.
week.
And do you agree with me with that assessment? Let's give or take a half marathon distance with that sort of vert. That's pretty
If
typical.
you're in the mountains and you're running a mountain race, yeah, for sure.
That's what
Because a
most
mountain
are
liver does not consider 5,000 feet of vert in a 50K to be a hilly race.
correct.
That's a
So
runnable race to them.
I think that's what this coach is talking about, and that's what I'm envisioning. So I think we needed to be more aggressive with our numbers.
Well, I do too.
And
And
so that's
so
why so what'd you get? 300 and what?
308 times 50 would be 15,400 feet for a 50-mile per week runner. Now,
That turns you into 70-mile a week athlete if you just time convert
minimum.
that to flat. Right.
I've said this before, but when I was in the midst of trying to do this for a living in the mountains where I had access to vert, I was running 60 to 70 miles per week and 10 to 15,000 feet of vert per week. So 60 to 70 at 10 to 15. This is at 50 miles per week and over 15. And I was always on the edge out there of what I could sustain. So my personal belief would be that it does not scale up to big mountain races super well. Now, let's say we take a 70-mile per week runner like I was at that time, 21,560 feet of vert per week. If I was running 21,000 feet of vert and 70 miles per week, in my mind, I'm training for like UTMB. Not, I would want to run more mileage than that to get ready for that, but I'm training for a big mountain epic course, not a half marathon with 4,000 feet of vert.
Know where I like this formula?
Where?
I like
Midwest.
it. Yeah, I like it for the Midwest. Exactly. I like it for the Midwest where we know you're not climbing for a half an hour straight. I don't
Right.
mind it for the Midwest where you could say you could get away with these numbers more so than the opposite. I then it probably breaks down too if we go the other way.
Okay.
Let's say you're running a 50K. I guess maybe it works that way. If you're running a 50K with only 1,000 feet of gain, this baby's flat. Now we're talking
32 feet per mile.
Does it matter? Now are we?
So now a 50 mile per week person is doing 1,600 feet of vert per week.
Which you probably get by proxy of running out your door in almost any place in America. Yeah.
So I think what we're deciding here is it works well for low to moderate mileage runners. It works well for low to moderate incline races. It does not scale well to high mileage. It does not scale well to mountain work. And unfortunately, this post it felt like preparing you for a mountain course. In fact, someone even asked about UTMB. Do I need to then be doing like what was it, something like 90,000 feet of vert per week? He's like, yep. Yeah, you do. And
I like that he doubled down on it.
And it was, well, I think you need to be scared by the mountain.
Yeah.
So again, this is why we didn't come on here to bash this, but to work it through out loud for you so that you have a way of working through what you read as fact online or see in a reel. So I think this also breaks down, Kirk, when we start talking about descent. Because yes, I would agree with a lot of this vert, but I completely disagree that you need to descend as much as you climb. Completely disagree, because engine is more worked on the uphill and structural damage and resiliency are more worked on the downhill. Now there's efficiency to both, and there is some crossover, but if you descend for 5,000 feet in a day, or you climb for 5,000 feet in a day, you have not worked the same systems.
100%.
And descending is way costlier from a recovery standpoint and from a damage standpoint than climbing is. And so I firmly believe you do not need to descend as much as you climb to be ready for a race. I'm not saying if you live in the mountains, don't run downhill back home, get picked up because you don't need to do it. I'm saying that if you're preparing for the demands of the race, I think you can get by with 50 to 60% of the downhill work as you would uphill.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think just looking, well, I guess we can dive into that more. It's like running uphill. What would I equate running uphill to? Swimming. And running downhill is the equivalent of squats.
Okay.
Meaning the impact taken in the pool is hardly anything, and the impact taken going downhill is that you can't even they're not even apples to apples or apples to oranges. They're so vastly different, right? As far as damage, don't confuse fatigue with damage, because they're very, very different, right?
Right.
You could swim all day every day and not be sore or broken down, but that theory would break down with descending. And so not only does it give you a minimal return on investment eventually, it actually becomes counterproductive eventually for the lay person.
Yeah.
Correct? That would be the equivalent. Let's say running downhill with purpose every day would be the equivalent of going in the gym, choosing to barbell squat, and being like, well, I got to get my squats in today, and I got to get in 10 reps because it fits into my formula. Eventually, you start heading the wrong direction. You start taking too much damage and under recovering. You could use that theory with, if you're going to squat 500 pounds and I must squat 50 pounds 50 times a day to get to my, it's a stretch, but you get what I'm getting at. And eventually that's not going to have you prepared for squatting 500 pounds correctly. So I'm just waffling over what the fix is there. If there's just a divide by 2 formula, or if there's
I think what you're
fixing the problem there.
I think what you're getting to, and you even said the word was purposeful. I think it now depends on what does this look like. Yeah. Like I used to have 9 to 1,100 feet of elevation gain and loss on my easy/recovery loop in Colorado. So I'd have almost 1,000 feet of descending that day, but I was dawdling. I was chopping my feet. I was switching back and forth across the trail. Once I was used to descending, that didn't cost me a lot. But I might have a day where I only had 900 feet of descending, but I ripped. It was 3 by 300 feet descending hard, and I was rocked for 2 days. Or I might have a day where I did 3,000 feet of descent down bar trail hard. That 3,000 feet affected me more than 9,000 feet of vert would have. So even then, there isn't a formula, because it scales drastically depending on how hard you're running it. So I think the point of all of this, both with the climbing and the descending, is how purposeful is the work. I've been doing this thing with my lifts during this rebuild here, where I do 20 to 30 minutes of incline hiking to start and finish. So I'm getting over 1,000 feet most days that I lift a vert, but I'm walking at 15 to 20% incline,
right,
at 3 to 3.8 miles per hour on my Nordic track. Like, what race is that preparing me for?
None.
Well, if I did that every day, I would be between 7,000 and 8,000 feet for the week. But I am not prepared for even a 50K with 4,000 feet of vert, 5,000 feet of vert. I'm not. But I hit the numbers. I'm not even ready to run it, because all I did was walk uphill on a cushiony, bouncy treadmill. I'm not ready to run 31.1 miles. I don't care how much vert is involved. So the purpose and the execution of what the vert and the descent looks like is all that matters.
Yeah, I do think maybe the perspective they're coming from is like, well, you'll be prepared. This I can guarantee that you will feel like you have done enough work, right? Like this would be like the if I am going, not overkill, maybe, I guess at some point overkill, but right, maybe the stance is like, you won't go in with question marks. You
Yeah.
will be 100% confident in the work you've done, right? Like this has to be the top tier of training commitment, right? Maybe is
Yep.
that the look?
I think that's a
You might,
part of it. And it's
right? We're not.
again why I can't just say, no, I disagree. Like, I disagree with this, but I don't disagree with all of it. Because if you did this versus not doing this, this would have you more prepared.
I'm thinking of the best mountain races of my life. Okay. And a lot of this was done on the treadmill, one session a week on the treadmill, one session done on real terrain.
Mhm.
And I was in the 7 to 8,000 feet of vert a week, right? Half of that being on the treadmill, so no downhill. And the race was requiring 5,000 feet of gain. The
Mhm.
race is the climbs, the Big Bears, the Tahoes. West Virginia had almost 5,000 one year. And in that math, I was way behind
Yeah.
as far as what I was executing. But I dosed my vert in 2 days. That was
Yep.
it. One day I worried about my climbing, and the other day I did both climbing and descending with purpose. And if I switched reversed roles there and it's like I'm going to find 1,000 feet every day and do a little bit of it all, like there's no way I would have been prepared for 13 miles and 5,000 feet of up and down on that formula. So like the why is the why and the what exactly is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
I fell short of the formula, had really good races and felt really good about both my climbing and descending, and were some of the best performances I've had in the mountains being a flatlander. So it certainly falls apart if you don't start dividing it and putting it places it belongs. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Yeah. And I think like if you are I think there are two ways to get better at big races. The
Okay.
first is to go huge volume and not do much specificity, but it's got to be huge. Like with Noel Medina, who we had, not, I always say this, Miguel Medina, who we had on here, and he went like 100 plus miles for 10, 12, 14 weeks in a row. He just did months of 100 plus miles in the mountains with big vert per week. He wasn't cranking on very much ever during training, but he cranked so much
Mm-hmm.
volume out and so much vert that when he did big, arduous mountain races, he was going undefeated for a while.
Yeah.
Because I believe you can race within 1 to 1.5 deviations of the pace you train at big volume with like no drawback. Which is why Jakob does so great with threshold training. He's only running 1 deviation down most of the time from that. And then he sharpens up enough to get another half a deviation off of
Yeah.
that. But if you did that for ultra training, you'd blow up. And if you did Miguel training for the mile, you'd blow up because the engine doesn't translate well. And that's what I come back to this. Like, if you just follow this, you better go all in on it and do all of the vert and do all of the descending at the
Mm,
big mileage, or you better scale the descending back and
I
hit it
get
with
you.
purpose.
Well, I just did the math on like my Tahoe build or my West Virginia build. I was
Okay.
running roughly 60 miles a week, preparing for a half marathon distance with 5,000 feet. Has me at almost 23,000 feet of gain and loss per week, the recommended.
Yeah.
If I were to do that at that mileage, you start extrapolating that out. And it's not, no, I don't think, even with what you're talking about, I don't like just, okay, go do it all. Even if it's low grade time on foot, even if every day you're getting, God, every day I put on my running shoes, I'd have to get 4,000 feet of gain.
And you
Okay.
can't get that in the Midwest unless you're on a treadmill.
So I think this really, okay, I really like the guys at this attempt at it, but like
Yeah.
these numbers are absolutely asinine. That's not,
From
I
that
think
perspective.
from that perspective, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most athletes, okay, most athletes training, think about the people you coach who do ultras or sub ultras. Let's call half marathon distance or above in the mountains. What are most of them running? Mine are running 50 to 60 miles a week when it's all said and done. You're going to assign them 23,000 feet of vert a
Absolutely
week.
not.
Could you imagine? Oh, today, just run uphill until you get 4,000. Tomorrow, let's do the same thing, but now we'll go back downhill with it too. Wednesday, guess what you're doing? 4,000 feet of gain again. Could
Yeah.
you imagine? It's just not serviceable at some point. So this absolutely breaks down. I don't agree with it. at some point. That's not feasible.
Right. The only people who are averaging 4,000 feet of vert per day that I know are also going 100 to 120 miles per week in the mountains.
Yeah, I
80
agree
to
with that.
120. Like
Yeah.
you look at John Albin, look at when Ryan Atkins is training for big things. The people we know that are doing this, they get big vert, but they get big time on feet as well. Simply from a time perspective, Kirk, I don't know many people who can get 20,000 feet of vert of time for that vert in per week in a normal life.
I'm trying to look up these big time mountain runners. I looked up Jim Walmsley. He hasn't posted since
You
2024.
should look up John.
Let's look up John Albin, because he has been one of the greatest OCR transition trail runner heroes. I mean, he's been so fun to follow.
He just ran in top 3 at UTMB for 70K.
All right, this will be a fun game. So was that last week though? So that one we might have to take out. Okay.
Yeah, you got to look at the couple months prior, but
okay. So I mean, the week of the race, which was how far, and what was the vert of it?
I don't know when he dropped out.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. This guy might be putting his money where his mouth is a little bit. All right, this is very interesting. So the week before the race, 52 miles.
Okay.
This is like not race week, but the week prior. Guess how much vert in 52 miles did he put in?
My guess would be 16,000.
22,000.
22,000. He's a mountain goat.
80 miles the week prior, 27,000. 100 miles the week prior, 40,000. 19 hours of time on foot.
Then that's what I'm saying. That's okay. So the week prior to that, you said 80 miles and how many feet?
79.7 miles, I guess.
Okay.
And 27 and change.
27,000 feet divided by 80 miles is 337 per mile.
Right. And what was he running at UTMB per mile?
I don't know. I don't know what that course profile is. But what that scales down to is if you were a 50 mile per week runner, you'd be at 16,850 feet. That is right up there with one of the biggest weeks I've ever run in my life. So what it comes down to is it doesn't scale well. And even if it does, like, yes, you would be prepared off this. We both believe that. But it's the downhill is gonna get you.
I'd be in a cast, but yes.
If you can survive it, you will be prepared. The downhill is going to be a problem, but the time is going to be an even bigger problem. So for I believe it works for the Midwest, except for the vert. I mean, except for the descent. Like when we are doing descending in the Midwest, if you like my hilly time trial loop is 9 miles with 700 feet of vert. So if I get 700 feet in 9 miles, I'm not doing that math out loud.
I'm still struggling with John Albin's 100-mile week with 40,000 feet of vert.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
But that's a hiking week.
Is it though?
Anyway, that's 77 feet per mile I'm doing in that.
Crap about myself.
Yeah, it would. So my hilliest 9 mile loop I have access to within probably an hour and a half is 77 feet per mile. So I just literally can't get that gain on the trails here, which means in the Midwest, you have to then exceed the time that would be necessary for most people or the distance run to get 4,000 feet a day off that. Let's just do that math, Kirk. 4,000 divided by 7. Let's call it 78. Live a little would be 51 miles a day on my hilly loop. So like that's a non-starter. If you could do that and survive it, you would be prepared, but you can't. So that means you have to do it on the treadmill.
You wouldn't be prepared.
You wouldn't.
At that point,
you'd be ready for a 50K, sure.
It doesn't work out that way either. No.
So it doesn't scale well to the Midwest from if you don't have access to that standpoint. It doesn't work that then you have to go to the treadmill to get it the uphill. So it certainly doesn't work for the downhill then. But we believe that one big downhill session a week is more than enough to prepare for almost any mountain race. In which case, you can't do 8,000 feet in a day intelligently. So what I would say is this, my rebuttal to all this would be like, it's really good for those that it works for, but you need to be able to do this once. You need to be able to do this week. You do not need to repeat this week. Like to be ready, for sure ready for West Virginia, yeah, you should be able to hit 10 to 16,000 feet of vert in a week for sure. But you don't need to average that.
I almost like you're getting my brain going. I do like that take right away. I like that take, like, hey, once every 4 weeks
Yep.
in a build, right? And then the rest can be something like that. I'm starting to feeling that one.
You need to be able to run. I need to be able to run 8,000 feet of descending in a week. I need to be able
And
to handle
John
that.
Albin's big week might check out that way. Hey, I had to hit it. I felt it.
Yeah.
Now I land the plane.
Yeah. And I'd be curious to see John's previous 10 weeks back from that 40,000 foot week.
I could give them to you. I could look it up. But
Maybe we should do that as well. But point being, I don't think any of this is bad. It just all needs context. And what we do on social media is we ingest it, say either yes or no, and we scroll right to the next thing. And you've already made up your mind. So then you go to do your training block and you're like, well, that guy said I should do this per week. So, all right, let's do that. But you maybe didn't spend a lot of time exploring how you should do it or how often you should do it. I cannot say with any amount of confidence that someone should do, what did this have, 26,000 feet of vert for West Virginia to prepare for? That you should do that every week.
For me, it was, over that.
And you never should do that downhill.
Yeah.
If you're doing 26,000 feet of descending in a week, again, you should be preparing for closer to a 100-mile race, not a half marathon. So everything we consume has to have buts to it. And unfortunately, reels are designed to just punch you with a fact and then move on. But like there are very few facts and rules that we can apply blanket in sports. And that's the problem, right? That's why we are still 550 episodes in and counting, because you can't just say, here's what you need to know, full stop, you're good. Like everything's nuanced.
That's why people reach out to us and hire us as coaches versus just take our advice and run with it blindly.
Yeah.
Correct? Because the what, where, when, how, why all matters. I'm going to give you a final take, not final take, but my take on it. If I had to say, you get to pick one, you like it or you don't like it. You have to land on one, guilty or not guilty, right? There's no gray area.
Yeah.
I am saying I like it. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's easy to scrutinize people because we have time to think and elaborate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is, I think, not misleading people nor making probably an honest attempt to better people, right? So I think intent is good. You have snake oil salesmen who are trying to get their next pyramid scheme buy off their product or whatever. Maybe this guy is. I don't know who you're talking about. I think by large, first of all, I think there's bottom half performers in any race, I think, consume more content than the top half performers.
Yeah.
I think those underperformers are consuming the most content just by hunger, right? And desire. I really do. I think once you get to us, I don't consume any running content or any sports or any health and fitness content anymore. Zero, because it's my life.
Other than watching races.
Correct. You're right. I love watching races. So what I'm getting at is I think people are largely undertrained, and I think people are largely underprepared for the vert that is coming their way and the descending that goes along with it. I think people think I got to go up and they forget about the down with purpose. I think people largely show up underprepared. And I think if you're going to take a guess or a stab at it and you're going to talk to Mr. 20 to 30 mile a weeker who still aspires to do ultras or half marathons on the trails, I think this is just a really good, this might cause people to reach when they don't reach. And so for blind faith, I am saying, I think this will serve more people well that come across it than not. And so for that, I'm going to give it, because I'm assuming most people are undertrained and underprepared. And so at least push them the right way.
Okay.
Go take your take on my take.
I support that. I agree with that. And I responded to John, who sent this to me. I don't really like this or agree with this because I don't for John.
If I start putting my numbers to it, I don't.
Yeah. But for the purpose, for what it's doing, if you are scrolling Instagram to get advice on how to survive your next ultra, if the worst thing I can come up with is, I don't think this scales well, and I think it's too much, that's on the right side of the line in terms of, are you a snake oil salesman? He's not trying to sell you a product off this post that guarantees to get you to your ultra despite not having to do ultra work.
But what's
He's
the
not,
link in his bio?
I didn't even click it. He's not trying to say, hey, if you just do some grounding each day and do some breathing exercises and take these 50,000 supplements, you will be able to run an ultra without running. So this person's on the side of you have to work hard and do a lot of work to be ready for a big, arduous race. And so for that reason alone, I have to say I like it. I support it because it's not fooling you into doing less than you need. Now, would people maybe get hurt off this? Yes, and I don't support that. Would people maybe be misled into how it scales? For sure, and I don't like that. But they're being led to work, and they're going to learn more about themselves and probably try self-scaling better if they try the work than if they think, I can just do a bunch of kettlebell exercises and be ready for Mont Blanc.
Okay, well, that I agree with. I agree. Take your Beat Elite and hit the trails, man. You're going to crush it.
There you go.
No. Yeah. I think this serves who needs it to serve. And I think somebody does the math in their own head who's already an 80-mile-a-week athlete and goes, yeah, right. I think it self filters a little bit, maybe, right? A little, you would think, like, who that is taking their running seriously enough to run 70 plus miles a week with Vert is going to be like, yeah, that sounds right. I got to run 40,000 feet of Vert this week. Like, I think they're going to be like, yep, that doesn't track. And then somebody who needs to reach a little more might be like, okay, 10,000 feet a week is a lot, but maybe I should actually try for 5. And
yes,
I understand how important the Vert is now. Like it got through my thick, stupid skull that I need to run more uphill and downhill.
It prods you towards more training rather than less training.
Yeah.
And that can be its own can of worms. But when races go south, assuming injury is not there, it's rarely because people are in the mountains. I'm talking. It's rarely because I did too much uphill work or too much downhill work.
Right.
If you're thinking that, it's because you're burnt out or injured. But if you run out of power on the uphills, which is like the number 1 or 2 thing that goes wrong in mountain ultras, is you just run out of climbing power at some point, then this could have helped you. So I like it from that standpoint. So do I use it? No. Will I ever use it? No. But if you could amend this by adding 1 comma and then a second statement to it, what would that be? How would you amend it?
Well, the problem is it wouldn't hit well because it needs to be short and concise for anybody to give it the time.
Yeah, that's all you get to do. You're only allowed 1 more sentence to tack on to this. And now it has to have your stamp of approval. What does it get?
If you're running 50 miles a week or less.
If you're running 50 miles per week
something that they can grab onto. And now I know, okay, yes, I should pay attention, or no, I shouldn't. I don't know. I think that's where my head first goes. It's all it needed to do is give like a mileage cap before this theory breaks down. I guess. What about you?
I think mine would be, this is what you need to be able to confidently complete every month.
Explain.
Like 1 of these weeks per month. Or I would say you need to confidently be able to complete this week to be ready for this race. That way you build up your training to be able to accomplish that week. And if you're doing that, then you're going to be able to do the race. But then you don't have to sit at this every week.
I agree with that as well. But then I use my own example of a 5,000 feet of vert race divided by a half marathon, times that by, even if I times it by a 50-mile week, right? Uh-huh. What does that come out to? Like, let me do this real quick. All right. Times that by a 50-mile week. So you're still telling me at least once a month, I need to hit a 50-mile week with 19,000 feet of gain and loss. Right? Like, doesn't that still?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So it even still seems extreme that way, right? Yeah. Like if I'm a 50,000 mile a week athlete.
But if you did,
I think it'd probably make me better.
You'd be better for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you need to? No. But if you if you can handle this, do you have any worries on race day? Probably not.
It's true. You're right.
And maybe it's not every month, maybe it's every 6 weeks, I don't know, but to be able to handle a week like this, if you went and did a week like that, you're ready.
But like a week like that, if I really did a week like that, Bracken, I would have to drive to my local ski hill, which is at most 220 feet of gain.
Let's do that. Let's do
Well, but no,
how many
listen.
times per week are you gonna do it, let's say?
No, I would have to do it every day up and down the ski hill for all of my runs only.
How much vert are we saying you have to hit? 16,000?
No, 19, almost 20,000, 19,000 feet of gain.
19,000 divided by 220. You would have to do 86 reps of that hill.
86 reps of that hill. And let's say that hill is a half a mile long at most. So I have to get down it as well.
So that's 43 miles of running.
But I haven't gone downhill yet. Right.
43 miles down.
It doesn't even math.
So you're at 80. Your half mile hill of 86 reps is 86 mile week.
That doesn't fit. That formula breaks down there, actually.
Which means you then have to do it on the treadmill and then you miss on the descent.
So that formula actually is faulty now.
Well, yeah, that's what we've said from the start, right?
Well, no,
like
but
it
I mean,
works
like,
for
if you
low
actually-
mileage Midwest.
If you actually do the math, I can't run 19,000 feet of up and down at any terrain at my disposal in 50 miles.
No.
That suddenly becomes an 80-mile week. It suddenly means I have no quality or every day I just must go and run up and down the same hill that I have I can't even run from the parking lot to it because I can't afford that mileage.
I got to check something.
You get what I'm saying here. Without the incline trainer, if you must descend, the formula is faulty with my mileage. I'm still saying I like this, by the way, but it really breaks down then.
It really does. So, for example, if you lived in Colorado Springs or Manitou Springs and you could go to Pikes Peak, Bar Trail is 13 and a half miles and you get 7,400 feet of vert.
I love this. Okay, yeah. Tell me.
All right. So that is 548 feet per mile on average.
But you still have to go down, remember, which counts for something.
And then you have to go down. So what you're going to get on that day, so it's actually going to be on that day, if you did that day, you would get 7,400 feet up, 7,400 feet down in 26 miles. So if you cut that in half, you would get 3,700 feet of vert and 13 and a half miles. Right?
Sure.
So 3,700 times 7 would be 26,000 feet of vert. And 13.5 times 7 is a 94-mile week. So how many did you have to hit per week? 26,000? Or sorry, you had to hit 19,000?
Yeah.
Divided by 30.
See if I could even do it there.
100. Yeah. You could do it in 5 days. You could get that vert in 5 days.
With how much mileage, though?
But that would already 70. Be at 69 miles.
Yeah, 70. See, so that formula actually is faulty because there's no terrain that you could actually do that without using the incline trainer.
So 19,000, let's just say, divided by 540 feet per mile. It's a 35-mile week at 540 feet per mile. If you're gaining half a K every mile.
So you would have to go up and down the Manitou incline exclusively.
So to hit 20,000 feet of vert in, what'd
Just
you say,
how many
miles per week?
50.
50? You have to average 400 feet per mile.
But you have to get down. And so you would have to have access to 30% grade exclusively. And
point being,
this might be the dumbest actually conversation we've ever had. We're like talking out this, like we're breaking down this random guy on the internet for it's helpful, but I think what you're trying to say is, and elaborate on your point, of course, but like you can see a recommendation and go, huh, but then you must look beyond what was just initially slapped on you, right?
Yeah, and you have to be able to look at something and say, what is this trying to accomplish? And can I do this in a sustainable way?
But it is a bad formula. That formula doesn't come out correctly for most any terrain in the world.
Let's pick one more race, Kirk. What is the most common U.S. race? That's like the most, should we just say Leadville?
Marathon. Oh, I was gonna say the marathon.
Not
Which one?
common, but like, what's the most popular? Should we do it Leadville?
Sure. Do a Leadville.
All right,
What is Leadville? Like 19,000? 16,000? Oh, I'm thinking
see.
of Western states. Never mind. That's a.
So we'll go 100 miles. It says over 18,000 feet. I don't know what the exact thing. Let's just say 19,000 feet in the race.
Okay.
Divided by 100. It's only 190 feet per mile.
Easy.
Interesting. So for someone to be confident to go to Leadville, should we say 60-mile weeks?
Yeah, let's go 60.
11,400 feet per week.
That tracks to me in
That's
a race
great.
like that. Yeah.
Now let's say your 100-mile weeks. You're at 19,000 feet per week.
Tracks as well.
I still think it tracks. So what this tracks for, I'm going to say races. Well, let's just see again.
I think races 200 foot a mile or under, maybe. But then again, you don't dose it every day. You still dose it when it's correct in big doses.
Yeah, somewhere between 2 and 220 feet per mile on average. That's what I'm going to say. That this works for, let's just say 200.
So would that be your first statement, actually?
That's now the statement.
Okay.
So 200 feet per mile times a 50-mile week is 10,000 feet per week.
Sure.
For you here, that's going to be difficult, but doable.
That's probably still involves treadmill.
It's going to, right? It's going to break down somewhere, but we're going to say 200 feet per mile cap is our limit on this. So there it goes. We took 56 minutes to get to the point where we're confident that we could scale this to someone somewhat if we kept it to a certain course profile. We still haven't adjusted the downhill.
A Midwest trail race. We're right back to where we started.
So it doesn't work for Midwest racers, which is what we started. I think I might have said it works for people in the Midwest. No, it works for people racing in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to train that way in the Midwest.
Yeah. So it does not apply to the coasts that well, but it applies to non-mountainous trail races. Are we confident with that statement?
Took us a long time to get here.
All right. Point being, don't scroll, absorb, accept as truth, and scroll on.
There's half of our listener base that's just like, come on, guys. Like, they're like training for road 5Ks, and they're like, this conversation is so irrelevant. And then there's a sector that's like really thinking this through with their own training. Yeah. I think this is servicing half of our listener base, and I think it's not the other, which is okay.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Everyone needs to think critically, right? Not just trail runners.
Yeah, I think a 50-mile, 10,000 feet of vert week, I've done it. It's a lot, and it involved the treadmill.
That
I don't
brings
think
me
I've
back
ever...
to you need to be able to do this week, not repeat this week.
Yeah. All right, so if you're just going to tell people what to do with this, now that we just thrown all this at them, now just let them go on their merry way and figure it out somehow on their own?
I think so.
It's a blind leading the blind over here, Brakken.
No, we gave
did we help people?
Of a stick to use. This is more of a thought experiment, Kirk.
I will say, I have never gone into a mountain race, and I'll call some of my trail races Afton, Zumbro here locally. I do 2,300 feet of vert in 13 miles, 12 and a half. That's all right for here.
Yeah.
I've never gone in being like, wish I climbed less, or I shouldn't. I always felt like I could have climbed more going into any of those races. And so if anything, it would push me that direction. And so I'm still putting the I like it stamp on it, even though it really is a faulty formula at some point. So
okay,
that's my official statement.
I like that. I'll finish with mine. I've never wished I'd climbed less. I've sometimes wished I descended differently.
Yeah.
I'll get done with the race and think I didn't descend that style of descending or a certain type, and that cost me. So I almost always think, thank goodness I climbed and I can probably do more, which kind of validates this formula. But then on the descending, I rarely think I need to descend more. Sometimes if you're unprepared, you do, but it's usually I need to descend differently in training. So
I agree with that.
Uphill is like volume, downhill is like speed work. And I don't think they can both live under the same formula.
Can't argue with that.
Beautiful.
That's where we put our bow tie on this thing, because you got to go mold young minds.
You're welcome, America.
So I don't know. I still feel like we made a mess of this, but hopefully you guys tracked it.